Okay, Sule, what do you say? Council of State. So he's dealt with Council of State. So we'll deal with that and deal with the Ex-Gratia separately. Council of State. Is it useful?
Well, I think that if you look at the constitutional provision, it was intended to be a useful institution of governance. However, over time, given the nature, the composition, and all of that, I think it has turned out to be a very needless and, I would say, for lack of a better word, useless institution. And as Martin was saying, if this institution is the institution that is supposed to be counseling or advising the president, whether or not their advice is binding is another matter. You ask yourself all the kinds of developments we are seeing, the state of our country today, the polarization and partisanship that we are seeing. What has been the role, what has been the role of the council so far? But what is for me quite curious is the fact that if you read the Beduando committee report, the Presidential Emoluments Committee, the one that was set up to look at the period 2017 to 2020, you read the report when they engaged the council. And in fact, the council is actually, my council members were actually telling the committee that the role of the council had actually expanded to the extent that now they actually represent the president and sometimes the state at certain functions. And apart from that, they have also been engaging in mediation and conflict resolution activities. And for that reason, the work has become so enormous that their conditions of service had to be looked at. And apart from that, they talk about the need to provide accommodation for members who are outside Accra. And in fact, asking for an increment in the salaries that are paid to them. And this is what the advocacy that they were putting out, even as we see it as a very needless institution in our democratic setup at this stage. But for me, I think the problem is not just the individuals. In fact, Martin was talking about the appointments of the 11 people. The president controls more than 11 because the former CDS has to be appointed by the president. The former IGP has to be appointed. The former CJ has to also be appointed. Now, if you even take these three people, a retired CJ, a retired CDS, a retired IGP, Samson, by their conditions of service, they retire on full salary. So the former CJ who is on the Council of State continues to earn the salary of a justice of the Supreme Court. The former CDS continues to earn full salary as though he was still working with the Ghana Armed Forces. The former IGP is the same. And this is the reality. They retire on their salaries. And then on retirement, if you take the CJ, for example, on retirement, the gratuity is 4 months salary times the number of years they served as CJ accumulated and given to them as, retirement package. And then whilst they receive their salary from the state, they are appointed to the Council of State, and there too they are being paid salary. And then after 4 years, they are being paid 366,000 Ghana cedis as Ex-Gratia. What kind of country is this? And for me, sometimes it's also the personal conscience. And as Toby said, this is certainly a part-time job. But you have Council of State members who are doing full-time job, being paid salary by the state, by the taxpayer, and then earning salary as well at the Council of State, and then at the end of the 4 years, giving Ex-Gratia. For me, perhaps we need to look back at the Constitutional Review Committee reports. And I don't know why President Mahama did not implement that report. I think he was the best person to have activated the recommendations of the Constitutional Review Committee report. Because the report was presented in December 2011. July 2012, President Mills passed on. And this was a vice president who was serving under President Mills when the committee was set up. Given that, presidents come and they abandon activities of their predecessors, for me, it is not surprising that President Akufo-Addo comes and perhaps doesn't want to deal with the recommendation.
Sule, as we understand, the need to get a bipartisan buy-in was completely not working. Because if you listen to the Chairman Sabonsu, who was leading the side of the NPP, they were just not ready for it. It doesn't matter that all of them had contributed somewhat, all previous presidents or previous, political leaders had made input into it. It did appear as if suddenly they had a change of mind and didn't want the review report implemented. So from where I stand, I know very clearly that they were against it, even though they didn't show it as openly at the time. And we kept being told that that's the reason they were unable to implement, because they had done all the draft legislations in respect of it. They had done all of them. Everything that needed to be done was ready. Remember, they formed a Constitution Review Commission Implementation Committee, and everything was cooked.
And also there was a lawsuit.
The lawsuit was determined eventually, and there was still some amount of time.
Well, Samson, yes, these things happened, but for me, it's one thing saying, well, I couldn't do it because there was no, bipartisan buy-in. And what we see, for example, if you look at the election of DCE processes that were initiated by President Akufo-Addo, of course, at some point, we all realized that the president realized, look, if this thing were to happen, we would lose. But we had gotten to a point where we would say, well, the president or the government of the day was so determined to have it happen, except that last minute when it was realized that, look, if this thing happens, my position will be defeated, and therefore there's no point going ahead. In terms of the Constitution Review recommendations, I don't think that we saw that level of effort on the part of, let's say, the Mahama regime. If there was anything at all, remember that there was a period, some time between the time it was presented and when President Mills died. So a lot of the things would have been done still under Mills, And so for me, the excuse that, well, we made an effort and there was no bipartisan, buy-in, and that's why we dropped it, flies in the face of, the facts that we know and what we saw. So I will go back to the point that I don't think that President Mahama showed any candid commitment towards having the constitutional review process take place. And President Akufo-Addo has made it clear. There was one meeting that I was part of, and I don't think that was an off-camera conversation or in-camera conversation. And the president made it clear that, well, he doesn't think that the constitution should be open to that kind of, amendments as were proposed by the committee, because otherwise there to be a total overhaul of the constitution. And in his view, this is the constitution that has really served our country for almost 3 decades as at the time. So if it is not broken, why do we want to fix it? So given that these are the same... Interestingly, I have said before that the first time I heard about the use of the word overhaul in respect of the Constitution, I heard it from Nana Akufo-Addo, that the Constitution needed to be overhauled. Somehow, they all seem to have changed their minds some point in time. Yeah, obviously, we've gotten to the point where we know that as far as our leaders are concerned, they have certain principles when they are in opposition, and when they get into power, the principles change. And President Akufo-Addo has demonstrated that in several areas.
So what do you say? What should be done with this Council of State?
No, I think, as I said from the beginning, I think at this stage it's a very needless institution. I don't see what their contribution is in terms of our governance. What do they bring to the table in terms of enhancing the governance of our country? They've been there over the years.
Interesting.